I didn't blink when she said it. We won't be needing your services here anymore. The boardroom was quiet, so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum like a warning siren. 17 people in suits, one glass of untouched water, and my wife's sister, Madison, now the newly crowned CEO of the company I built from scratch with their father, standing in my face like she owned every brick in the building. You have one day to pack your stuff, she added, with that fake, Botox-stretched smile of hers, the kind that says, I've been waiting to ruin you since prom night. I barely held in the laughter. Not because I was losing the job I gave 11 years of my life to. Not because she blindsided me in front of the board like a calculated snake. But because of him. Her boyfriend. Zach. A lean, hair-gelled, loyal-man wearing smug machine who still calls red wine grape juice for grown-ups. He sat next to her, pretending not to smirk. But I knew. I knew everything now. His hands had been on more than Madison lately. His watch, same one I bought for my wife last Christmas, flashed when he leaned across her whispering God knows what. That same watch was missing from my wife's drawer a week ago. She told me she lost it on a girl's trip to Aspen. That was lie number 7. Or maybe 17. I stopped counting after Cancun. Let me rewind, but not too far. It started with a cough. A stupid, dry little cough in the middle of the night. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't my wife's. I woke up to get water. I passed the guest room, door slightly cracked, and heard it. A man's cough. Short. Deep. I froze. Heart ticking like a bomb. I didn't go in. I went downstairs. Sat in the kitchen for hours. Watched the security footage from the side gate. 2:12 a.m. My wife in a robe. Unlocking it. Letting someone in. It wasn't her dad. Wasn't a neighbor. And the shape, tall, athletic, slouchy shoulders, was familiar. I watched the tape 5 times before I realized. Zach. The moment hit me like a sucker punch in a parking lot. I didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. I stared at that grainy silhouette sneaking into my house while I slept 5 doors down. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't raise my voice. I made a plan. Because you don't confront a wildfire with a bucket. You wait. You let it burn everything she thought she controlled. And then, when the flames are the highest, you light the match that started it all. So when Madison, my wife's saintly sister, strutted into that boardroom wearing her new CEO title like a tiara, I let her speak. Let her fire me. Let her feel like she won. Because tomorrow, Zach would walk into the same boardroom. Only this time, he'd be wearing a wire. See, I wasn't just fired. I was framed. They needed me gone fast. And Zach? He wasn't just betting my wife. He was part of something bigger. But I'll get to that. For now, let's go back to the first time I saw Zach kiss my wife. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't soft. It was behind the storage room of the holiday gala 2 months ago. I went out for air. She said she had to fix her makeup. I turned the corner, and there they were. Her arms around him like a vice. His hand on her lower back. Their lips locked like it was their anniversary. I didn't make a sound. Didn't say a word. Just backed away into the shadows. That moment burned a hole in me. Not because she kissed him, but because right after, she looked at her phone, smiled, texted me, "Miss you, babe. Be back in 5 kiss mark dot." 5 minutes later, she walked into the ballroom and handed me a glass of wine like she hadn't just swapped spit with a guy she once said reminded her of a dumb gym teacher. I drank the wine, and I smiled. Because that was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be about saving a marriage. It was going to be about burning a dynasty. And now that Madison handed me the match by firing me in front of the board, it was time to return the favor. Tomorrow's gonna be fun. I walked out of that boardroom with my head high and a smile that didn't belong to a broken man. They thought they crushed me. They thought removing my name from the office door would erase everything I built. But they forgot one thing. I knew where all the bodies were buried. I buried most of them myself. When I got home that evening, Claire, my wife, was already there. Candlelit dinner on the table, glass of red in her hand, wearing a silk robe like she was auditioning for a movie that no one asked to see. Her eyes sparkled, fake as ever. "Rough day?" she asked, playing innocent. That tone, that sugar-drenched, smug little tone, almost made me laugh. "You could say that," I replied. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, pretending like nothing was happening, like she hadn't just helped orchestrate my public execution. Like her hands weren't metaphorically dripping in the same blood Madison spilled. We ate in silence. I let her do her usual act, how she hated office politics, how Madison was always jealous, how she was so proud of me. I nodded, smiled. Swallowed every lie like I hadn't already tasted the truth days ago. Then she said it. I think maybe this is a sign. You've worked so hard. Maybe we take some time off. Travel. Reconnect. I nearly choked. Reconnect? With the woman who was sleeping with Zach behind my back? Who used our marriage like a social shield while she danced between lies and backroom rendezvous? Who knew Madison was planning to push me out but said nothing? I played along. Told her it was a good idea. That maybe we needed a change. The next morning, I went back to the office to pack my things. Security had already been told to escort me if I tried to log in. Didn't matter. I had everything I needed backed up, printed, and sealed weeks ago. Every invoice. Every bonus that got funneled to Madison's shell company. Every personal business expense Claire submitted for those hotel nights in Chicago that I never attended. Zach was a fool. He thought he was playing her. What he didn't know was that Claire was playing both of us. That's the kind of person she is. She doesn't just lie, she reinvents reality. Twisted until it bends so far that you start doubting your own memory. That night, I sent Zach a message. From an anonymous number. Meet me at 9 p.m. at the parking garage on 5th. Come alone. I know about you and Claire. But I also know what Claire's doing to you. He showed up, wearing his guilt like cologne. Thick, obvious, pathetic. What the hell is this? He said, the moment he stepped out of the elevator. I stood there, holding a folder. Insurance, I replied. For both of us. He took the folder, flipped it open, froze. Bank transfers, photos, emails. One even had Claire asking Madison, do you think Zach will take the fall if this backfires? His hands trembled. Where did you get this? He asked. I leaned against the wall. I built this company, Zach. I know every corner, every password, every skeleton. And now you do too. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he looked up, pale. She said she loved me. I laughed. Not a chuckle. A cold, ugly laugh from the pit of my stomach. She told me the same thing last week, right after you left our bedroom at 3 a.m. That broke something in him. He sat down on the hood of a car, face in his hands. I thought I was special. She says that to anyone whose bank account ends in more than 4 zeros. We talked for nearly an hour. He admitted they had been seeing each other for almost a year. That Claire told him I was emotionally distant, cold, obsessed with work. That she needed a man who listened. I didn't even argue. Let him believe what he wanted. But I could see it in his face. He was unraveling. And if there's one thing a scoundrel like Claire never anticipates, it's what a guilty man with nothing to lose might do. So I handed him a second folder. This one wasn't full of dirt. It was full of instructions. You want revenge? I asked. Or you want justice? Zach looked up. Both. Good, I said. Tomorrow you'll go to the board. You'll tell them everything. And if I don't? Then I send the other file to your HR department, your girlfriend's father, and the IRS. You're either useful or disposable. Just like she made me. He nodded. Tomorrow was going to be fun. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was anxious, but because I didn't want to miss a single second of what was coming. The whole thing had been set up like a chess match, and now every piece was moving exactly where I wanted. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was art. At 9 a.m. sharp, I pulled into the company parking lot one last time. Not as an employee. Not as Claire's husband. But as a man finally pulling the pin from the grenade he'd been holding for a year. I waited in the cafe across the street, eyes locked on the boardroom windows. At 9:22 a.m., Zach walked in. No tie. Sweating through his shirt. He looked like a man walking into his own trial. And in a way, he was. Only this time, he was testifying against the woman he once thought was his ticket to power. From what I heard later, it took exactly 13 minutes for the room to descend into chaos. He spilled everything. The affair. The secret payments. The way Claire and Madison had planned to push me out so they could restructure the company and move funds offshore. He told them about the hush money account in the Caymans, about the private strategy retreats that were just 5-star hotel meetups. He even showed them the photos I'd given him, Claire with a glass of champagne, curled up in a bathrobe in the same suite she once told me she hated. One of the board members, Mr. Gilmore, an old bulldog with zero tolerance for corruption, stood up and walked out mid-sentence. That was my cue. I followed him into the hallway. The moment he saw me, he stopped dead. You, he said. You knew all along. I nodded. And you let them hang themselves, he added, almost with respect. He didn't ask how I got the dirt. He didn't ask why I waited. He just walked back into the boardroom and called for a motion to suspend both Madison and Claire pending an independent audit. The vote was unanimous. By 11 a.m., security was escorting Madison out of the building she thought she owned. Claire wasn't far behind. But here's the part that no one saw coming. She didn't go quietly. She stormed out screaming. Called me a snake, a manipulator, a traitor. Said I ruined everything we had. That I was too weak to handle a real woman. That last part almost made me laugh again. But not because it was funny. Because she genuinely believed she was the victim. I watched her shove her Versace bag into the back of her Mercedes, her manicured hand slamming the door like she still had control. Then she turned and saw me standing there. You think this makes you a man? She snapped. No, I said. This just proves you never deserved one. She rolled her eyes. You'll come crawling back. You always do. I didn't respond. Because by the time she finished that sentence, her car had already been blocked in by 2 IRS vehicles and a police cruiser. Remember the second file I mentioned? Yeah, that one didn't stay buried. I stayed long enough to see her face when they asked her to step out of the car. Her eyes darting. That perfect foundation cracking under real pressure for once in her life. And Zach? He stood on the curb, watching it all unfold, hands in his pockets, stone-faced. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. But he didn't stop them either. When they cuffed Claire, she screamed. Zach, tell them this is a mistake. You love me. He looked at her like she was a stranger in an airport. I loved the version of you that didn't exist, he said. Then he turned and walked away. So did I. I didn't say a word. Didn't look back. Didn't flinch when she shouted my name like it still had weight. Because the truth was Claire died in my eyes long before the police got involved. The woman I married? She vanished somewhere between the first lie and the last moan she shared with another man in our guest room. And now she was gone for real this time. Later that night, I sat in my car outside the old marina. It was quiet. Peaceful. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty, like someone had pulled a string and let all the pressure drain out of me at once. But then something happened I didn't expect. I smiled. A real one. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't fighting for something that was already lost. I was just free. The next morning felt strange. I woke up in a bed that finally didn't smell like her perfume. No traces of Claire's foundation on my pillow. No quiet sound of her fake phone alarm she used to sneak out of bed early on Pilates mornings. Just silence. For the first time in years, it wasn't suffocating, it was clean. I made coffee. Sat on the balcony. Watched people walk their dogs and head to work, unaware that somewhere in this city, a woman who once bragged about never wearing the same heels twice was now sitting in a beige interrogation room, explaining how company funds ended up in her personal spy account. Part of me thought I'd feel vindicated. Like the moment would be sweeter. But truth be told, revenge doesn't come with balloons. There's no confetti after betrayal, just quiet. By noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked it up. Is this Mr. Daniels? Speaking. This is Detective Morrison, Financial Crimes Division. Just wanted to confirm your email. We're forwarding a copy of the statement your wife gave today. Ex-wife, I corrected. There was a pause. Then the detective chuckled softly. Right. Ex-wife. I opened the email. Claire's statement was 4 pages long, full of finger-pointing, sob stories, and my personal favorite, I didn't know what I was signing. She tried to frame everything on Madison. Said she was manipulated. That she thought the money came from extra bonuses Madison arranged. Claimed Zach was the real ringleader, and she was just emotionally vulnerable after years of neglect. She even wrote, my husband never touched me. He was too married to his job. That line lit something inside me. Not anger. Not hurt. Just a slow, burning disgust. Because she wasn't just a liar. She was a coward. Even cornered. Even when the walls were caving in, she had to reach for another dagger to twist into my back on her way down. I closed the email. Deleted it. Let them sort each other out. I wasn't going to play cleanup crew for their sinking ship. That night, Zach called me. I didn't think you'd answer, he said. Then why call? I don't know. Maybe to say. I didn't mean for any of it to happen like that. She told you I was a monster, I said. Right? Yeah. And you believed her. He didn't reply for a moment. Then, I did. Until she started saying the same stuff about me. There it was. The cycle. Claire didn't cheat because she was bored. She cheated because she needed someone to validate whatever script she was writing about herself. Every man had to play a role in her fantasy, and if you didn't, she recast you without warning. What happens now? He asked. You move on. And next time a woman tells you her husband doesn't get her, don't be the guy who volunteers to understand her. He didn't laugh. Just sighed. You ever think about what would have happened if we never found out? Every day. Then I thank God we did. We hung up. I didn't hear from him again. The next few weeks were quiet. I got a call from the board, asked me to come back in some kind of advisory role. Said the company needed stability. I declined. They offered equity. I declined again. Because sometimes the best closure is walking away and letting the ashes settle without trying to rebuild. One night, I got an email from Claire's lawyer. She wanted to talk. Not through attorneys. Just her and me. One last conversation. I didn't answer. But I did drive to our old house. It was dark. Windows empty. A for sale sign sat crooked in the lawn. I stepped out, walked to the front steps, and sat down. Just to feel the weight of everything one more time. The nights we danced barefoot in the kitchen. The arguments we whispered so the neighbors wouldn't hear. The fake anniversaries. The hollow I love yous. Then I stood up, walked back to my car, and left. No tears. No speech. No final look over the shoulder. That chapter was done. And for the first time in a long time, the next one would be mine. A month passed. No more emails. No late-night messages. No mysterious knocks on my door. It was like Claire had finally disappeared from my life, and not in the way she used to disappear on weekends, blaming work or girls' nights that ended with hotel receipts I wasn't supposed to find. One night, around 11 p.m., I got a knock at the door. I opened it, half expecting a process server or maybe some final ghost from the past. Instead, it was Claire's mother, Helen. Tight curls, tight jaw, tight judgment. She'd always looked at me like I wasn't enough. Now she looked hollow. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, she said. Actually, second to last, I replied. She didn't smile. Just stood there, twisting her ring like she wanted it to vanish into her skin. I just thought you should know. Claire's in a clinic. I didn't move. She's not doing well. Mental breakdown. Or pretending to have one. I don't know anymore. She's always been good at pretending. Helen looked down. Her voice lowered. She lost everything. The money. The friends. Even Madison doesn't talk to her anymore. And you were the only one who ever. Spare me, I cut in. You never liked me. You thought I wasn't good enough for her. I was wrong. The words fell heavy. They didn't fix anything, but they meant something. Maybe not to her, but to the younger version of me that once tried so hard to be part of that family. I didn't invite her in. Didn't ask for details. I just stood in the doorway while she tried to explain Claire's downward spiral. How she'd been calling people at 2 a.m., accusing them of betrayal, how she told nurses I was coming back for her. I'm not, I said. Helen nodded. I figured. But she asked me to tell you one thing. What? She said, tell him he was the only man who ever scared me, not because he was cruel, but because he could see right through me. I closed the door without saying a word. That night, I slept better than I had in years. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild, not the business, not the marriage, but myself. I went back to the gym, took long walks, found a dusty old guitar I hadn't touched in 10 years and let my fingers relearn what peace felt like. Then one afternoon, I saw her. Not Claire. Her. Sophie. She worked at the little bookstore 2 blocks from my place. I'd seen her once or twice, always reading behind the counter, glasses on, headphones in. But that day she looked up, smiled. You've been coming here for 3 weeks and still haven't bought a book. I've been judging covers, I said. Find one worth opening? Maybe. We talked. Laughed. Nothing heavy. No confessions, no broken hearts spilled across the counter. Just 2 people trying to remember what normal felt like. We went for coffee. Then dinner. Then nowhere in particular. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to perform. Didn't have to chase validation or walk on eggshells hoping not to trigger another tantrum. Sophie listened. Not because she wanted dirt, but because she genuinely cared. I didn't tell her everything at once. Just pieces. Small, manageable pieces. When I finally told her about Claire, she didn't flinch. She sounds exhausting, she said, sipping her tea. She was. Then don't let her keep living rent-free in your head. That line stuck with me. And little by little, I evicted every memory that didn't serve me anymore. Claire's perfume? Gone. Her playlist on my phone? Deleted. The photos? Burned. And yet, I wasn't bitter. Just done. Months passed. One day, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single photo, me and Claire on our wedding day. On the back, one sentence. You were always the real thing. I wasn't. I didn't frame it. Didn't keep it. I dropped it in the trash without a second thought. And as it hit the bottom, I realized something. Closure doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence. And knowing you walked through hell. And didn't stay. 1 year to the day since that boardroom ambush, I found myself standing in front of the same building. Not because I missed it. Not because I wanted to gloat. I was meeting someone who'd asked to see me face to face. Someone from the board. Gilmore. He greeted me with a firm handshake and those tired, cynical eyes of his. Never thought I'd be having lunch with a guy who made half our senior leadership look like interns, he said, sliding into the booth. I try not to make a habit of dismantling companies anymore. He chuckled. That's too bad. We could use a few more wrecking balls with a conscience. The waitress poured our coffee, and we got to the point. We've rebuilt a lot, Gilmore said. Madison's still in litigation. Claire, well, you know where she is. Zach vanished. You were right about everything. I didn't say anything. Just one question, he continued. Why didn't you take the offer to return? I stirred my coffee slowly. Because I don't want to spend my life cleaning messes I didn't make. I'd rather build something of my own, with people who don't measure loyalty by bloodlines and lunch meetings. He nodded, quietly impressed. So, what are you building now? Something smaller, I said. Simpler. But it's mine. And it was. 6 months after everything went down, I launched my own startup. Nothing flashy. Just clean, smart work with good people. No backstabbing, no drama, no family empires masquerading as loving dynasties. I hired interns no one else would give a shot. I trained people to lead, not to scheme. I did things the way I always wanted, but couldn't when I had to tiptoe around Claire and her poison web of insecurities. After lunch, I walked to a nearby park. Watched 2 kids argue over a soccer ball and their dad step in, laughing, diffusing the tension with a joke and a handshake. And for some reason, it hit me. I wanted that. Not just a career. Not just freedom. A life. I wanted mornings that started with pancakes and messy hair. Nights that ended with real laughter, not cold silence and falsified affection. I wanted to build something permanent with someone who didn't need to lie to feel interesting. That evening, Sophie stopped by with Thai food and 2 beers. She kicked off her shoes and sat cross-legged on the floor. Rough day? She asked. Nope, I said. Good day, actually. She handed me a beer. You look like someone who finally forgave himself. That made me pause. Had I? I thought about it. Thought about the man who once lost sleep wondering why he wasn't enough. The man who scanned text messages looking for signs of betrayal, who clung to the hope that love could be salvaged with the right gesture or gift or apology. That man was gone. And in his place stood someone scarred, but stronger, wiser, quieter, maybe, but louder in the ways that mattered. Yeah, I said. I think I did. She smiled. Good. Now let's eat before your spring rolls turn into glue. We sat, ate, laughed at stupid things, and talked about everything except the past. At one point, she asked, do you think she ever loved you? I took a breath. I think she loved the way I made her feel. But not me. Sophie nodded. Sounds familiar. Someone hurt you, too? Didn't they always? We clinked bottles. 2 survivors. 2 people who didn't need saving anymore. As the night fell and the city softened under the glow of streetlights, I realized something else. Claire taught me how to spot a lie. But Sophie? She reminded me what truth felt like. And that was worth every shattered vow, every fake smile, every night I spent wondering what I did wrong. Because the answer was simple. I didn't do anything wrong. I just loved the wrong person. And now, finally, I was ready to love the right one. Spring turned into summer, and the city warmed with it. Not just in temperature, but in pace, in spirit, in how it breathed. My days weren't quiet anymore. They were full, not chaotic, not hollow, just full. Of purpose. Of motion. Of people who spoke with sincerity instead of agendas. I barely thought about Claire now. When I did, it was like remembering a bad movie you once convinced yourself was brilliant. You can recall the scenes, the music, the dialogue, but the emotions? They fade. And what's left is a kind of detached curiosity. How did I ever think that was love? One afternoon, Sophie and I were walking through a flea market. Nothing fancy, just tables of second-hand books, vintage jackets, records with cracked sleeves. She picked up an old Polaroid camera and smiled. You used to take pictures, right? A lifetime ago. Why'd you stop? Because the last person I took photos of turned out to be someone I didn't want to remember. She held the camera up to my face, squinted through the viewfinder, and clicked. Well, she said, shaking the picture, let's overwrite that. I laughed. But it hit me in a way I didn't expect. Not all scars need to be hidden. Some need to be acknowledged, then outgrown, replaced. Later that night, we sat on my rooftop watching the city blink below us. I used to think love was sacrifice, I said. Giving up parts of yourself to make someone else happy. That if it hurt, it meant it was real. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder. And now I think love is peace. Quiet. Consistency. The ability to exhale around someone. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. In that silence, I found more comfort than years of words with Claire ever gave me. I looked at Sophie, really looked. And it hit me. She didn't fill a void. She didn't fix me. She just met me where I finally stood whole. And maybe that was the difference. Claire was chaos. Sophie was calm. Claire played games. Sophie played courts. Claire tore me down so she could feel taller. Sophie? She never asked me to shrink. And that's when I knew I was done writing the chapter about pain. About betrayal. About learning lessons the hard way. This was the part where I finally turned the page. If there's anything I'd say to someone in my shoes, it's this. Don't waste your life trying to make broken people whole. Don't confuse their need for control with affection. And when the truth finally hits you, no matter how brutal, let it hit. Because the sooner you stop trying to rewrite someone else's lies into your truth, the sooner you can start living your own. And when you do, you'll be shocked how light it feels to carry only your own heart.